Teresa A. Whom do Scientologists revere more, Hubbard or Miscavige? Would a member get in trouble for exalting LRH over DM in a conversation? This is a great question, Teresa, because it's really a bit of the balls are kind of up in the air. It really depends on the context of the situation and who you're talking to. Old school Scientologists, OG Scientologists, guys who've been around since the 70s, 80s. You know, when Hubbard was still alive, Scientology had a very different kind of experience and spirit to it, or flavor to it, because Hubbard was the iconic, you know, salvation figure, the leader, the savior, the genius, the guy who was inventing all of this and discovering it, rather, and putting it all out there. But there was always the possibility when he was alive that you could reach out and contact him, talk to him, have words with him in some fashion, usually through writing. You could write him a letter or something. And this was really important, and Scientologists really valued that living connection that they could have with L. Ron Hubbard. When he went away, Miscavige took over, and he put himself in place very, very authoritatively. And Miscavige comes across as a little bit of a dick, right? People that I talk to who were Scientologists when I was in Scientology negatively reacted to Miscavige back in the 80s and 90s when he was first kind of coming out in the public forum. I mean, he had come out publicly, you know, in terms of being a Sea Org member, tough guy, you know, enforcing L. Ron Hubbard's will, all the way back to the early 80s with the Mission Network takedown and the mission holders being, you know, grilled over. I mean, Miscavige led all of that charge and destroyed a lot of lives, and almost took Scientology right over a cliff at L. Ron Hubbard's orders, and with the work of the rest of the Sea Org. It wasn't just Miscavige doing that. But it wasn't like Miscavige got a real big, wide, popular name during that time. He was just one of a number of Sea Org executives that people hadn't seen or heard of before. And then this slowly morphed into the modern Scientology management structure that was developed. And then Hubbard died, and Miscavige kind of just took the whole thing over. The L. Ron Hubbard death event is where most public first actually laid eyes on David Miscavige. Who is this guy? You know, he's the MC of this event, and he's talking about Hubbard, and he says he knew him and all this. Okay. And then over time, they, you know, kind of heard things from him, saw stuff from him in events. He was emceeing events, or he was showing up at events. But this was before Miscavige was the sole guy running the whole thing. So they were also seeing other senior Scientology executives, and they kind of equated them all with one another. Not everybody in the public sector of Scientology is really clear on how the management structure is put together or how the Sea Org organizes itself. They really don't care that much about that kind of thing. So they learn a minimal amount of it, but they don't really pay a whole lot of attention. But over time, as L. Ron Hubbard's legacy or memory faded, and Miscavige was the living, you know, breathing leader of Scientology, his presence started dominating in his attitudes and ideas and way of talking and way of thinking, and the presentations and the grandiose events and all of the, you know, digital displays and graphics and all that stuff. That's all Miscavige. He loves all that crap. So that started sort of defining the Scientology experience more. He was recreating it in his own image, and he was putting himself up more and more. And this is really through the 90s I'm talking about now, that Miscavige really started coming to the fore. And there were two things that solidified his seniority and leadership of Scientology, and that was the Ted Koppel interview on Nightline, and which Scientologists were uniformly impressed by, loved, thought was amazing, thought Miscavige was awesome, thought he answered all the questions wonderfully. Like, we all thought that was the bee's knees. And then he got the tax exemption, right? And he pushed that through and made the deal with the IRS that was necessary in order for all Scientologists to have tax exemption. And if there is one thing that Scientologists are going to worship you for, it's saving the money, because Scientology is so goddamn expensive that they're shelling out thousands of dollars at a pop to even be able to do it. So when Miscavige got them tax exemption, oh my God, I can write this off and I can save money. This was huge, right? And they figured Miscavige is the real deal. He's the guy who ended the war with the IRS that had been going on since, as long as anybody could remember, because that war with the IRS goes all the way back to 1967. And there are not a lot of living Scientologists who were around in 1967 as Scientologists. So most Scientologists have that experience of Scientology now. And so Miscavige is their leader and has always been the leader, and they don't have the living memory of L. Ron Hubbard being alive and being around. That's the OG guys. So to them, Miscavige is really the leader and the exalted one and the one who represents what Scientology is and what it can do. And so it's kind of, if in a way, I guess you could look at it as two camps, but it's not really like these are factions or that they war or disagree or squabble or something. They don't. It's more like those are the old guys and they've kind of evolved more into this is Scientology now. It's and like any other group, it grows, changes, and evolves. So Scientology has sort of evolved from Hubbard in charge to Miscavige in charge. They still pretend that Hubbard is the basis of all of Scientology. They still believe that he's the one who wrote all of it, did all the lectures, that he's the source of Scientology. And Miscavige is not considered the source of Scientology, but he has been very hard at work. When you talk about language, loaded language or language manipulation, Miscavige not only identifies in the world of Scientology as David Miscavige or chairman of the board or COB, he's also called Department 21 or Source, because Department 21 on the Scientology org board is the Department of Source. It's L. Ron Hubbard's department. And the person who is working in that department in every Scientology organization around the world is called the L. Ron Hubbard communicator. And this is the person who's supposed to be forwarding L. Ron Hubbard's intention and make sure his policies and his technology are being followed. Well, at the highest level of Scientology, the source department and the source word is used now for David Miscavige. I didn't see a lot of public refer to David Miscavige that way, but Sea Org members sure do, right? They routinely do. He is Department 21. He is source. So to the Sea Org's way of thinking, I think you've got David Miscavige in a senior position to L. Ron Hubbard in terms of authority. If it really came down to it, and I've said this before, if it came down to L. Ron Hubbard wrote that you cannot open the box, and David Miscavige is ordering you to open the box, you're going to open the box. And if you don't open that box, there's going to be trouble for you because you're not complying with a Department 21 COB source order. And you can fall back to L. Ron Hubbard, and the person who's trying to order you to do this will probably say, yeah, but that doesn't apply in this situation, or there's some other reason why that policy isn't applicable here, and David Miscavige's orders must be followed. That's command intention. That's how that manifests. So if you've ever heard of that expression, right, which is what the Sea Org is all about. The Sea Org is about enforcing command intention, and David Miscavige is command. So those are kind of some of the levels to this as I understand it and as I lived it. Maybe other people had different experiences with this, but that's how I see it. So there you go.